Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Music Lab podcast. My name is Dogg, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you for another episode of the podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us. That helps the bands like Space Bacon today. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear RAR. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we have Kevin, the bassist, of course, the most important band member in any band from Space Bacon. Welcome, Kevin. How are you?
What up, dog? I'm doing well. Thanks for
You
asking.
are you are literally working while we're doing this podcast. Obviously, we're not yet as a full-time musician. We still have a full-time job. So how's your day going so far?
It's good. I'm currently on my lunch break, so I'm not working during this interview.
Nice. So you guys started in 2000. Let's go back to the beginning because I mean it's 11
Sure.
years ago. When I say 11 years ago you started as a band, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Damn, I'm old. Um, it's a feat. I think being in a any type of partnership, whether, friendship, music, business, artistic, creative, it's a long time to be together. And when we started out at Fordham University in the Bronx, it was just only just take it back. Our band consists of four members. We've gone through different iterations, and I'll explain them each way. But at the beginning, before the band started, it was me on drums, Chris on bass, Jack on guitar, and we just played a frat party. And we're like, oh, this is cool. So we played music. Eventually, this became a band. We brought in Sam Crespo, our current drummer, and our buddy Anthony, who played guitar for 2 years. And when I think about starting the band in 2013, I just think about having fun, just doing what we want to do. And it was very organic. And we had a lot of friends who supported us and came to shows, and it kind of grew from there. So it's definitely an accomplishment to be in a band for over 10 years and still doing it and still touring. And in 2025 we expect to tour more. So it's incredible.
Yeah. So let's talk about the name, Space Bacon. What was the inspiration? Was it your idea? Whose idea was it to come up with this name for the band?
Uh, I guess it's out there already. But yeah, my name's Kevin, and I think before the band started, I was playing with like a another band, and I think Jack and Chris showed up, and they were just joking around, be like, "Yo, you're like a mix of Kevin Spacey and Kevin Bacon. We'll call you Space Bacon." And I was like, "Oh, that's a good name for a band." So yeah, that eventually became the band, but we don't like to talk about it too much because of cancellations and
Yeah.
But that's how the band started. It was kind of just like a silly joke. And honestly, every band I've been in is somewhat derived from someone's name. So I kind of knew that hit the nail on the head as being a good name.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the best cover band names of all time is Ned Tugent.
Oh, nice.
So, play on words, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
Exactly.
and Ted Nugent isn't, the greatest guy either. So
Yeah, he's a little,
he's a little out there.
political. I don't know.
I don't know about that, but he did played some good songs. So
Nice.
in 2015, you decided to go down to the four piece at that point. Was it
hmm
more just a mutual decision? Was it amicable? Like, how did that turn about? Like, how did that situation come about?
Um, Not really too sure. I think, the first 2 years we were just having fun, trying to figure out our sound. And I think at a certain point, um, we just want to take it more seriously. We were out of college by then. People were working jobs. We kind of had like a more professional sense as to who we were as individuals. And we just, I think maybe it was scheduling, maybe it was like how well we could improvise as a four piece. But yeah, we just made the decision to only have one guitarist. And that's kind of when the band really blossomed. I think we just, it was easier to organize people to get together. We just kind of had we rebranded. That's when we created the logo. We were all living in Brooklyn at that point, more or less. We were practicing more. Um, yeah, that's kind of like the iteration that everyone knows today. I think a lot of people don't know that there was an extra guitarist earlier in the day besides the OG fans. Um, but yeah, that's the iteration that people know of Space Bacon is the four piece with Jack Willard on guitar.
Yeah. So, living in Brooklyn, talk about the music scene at that point there in Brooklyn and in like New York City as a, unsigned band that's trying to just get gigs.
Yeah, it's very tough. New York's a very tough market. We were very fortunate to kind of have a lot of support around us. Um, there were in terms of so we rehearsed at a studio off the Montrose L stop in Brooklyn. There's like if anyone's familiar with or any musician in Brooklyn, you know that that's kind of like where everybody goes to rehearse. And kind of through friends of friends, going to similar concerts, we became with other bands that were kind of in our bracket of like same music, same type of popularity. Just to name some like Chromatropic, um, Teddy Midnight, Cousin Earth, Ukulelean, even Horizon Wireless, who's now our manager. It was just a group of Brooklyn bands that kind of came together and supported each other. And I've had someone like come up to me recently. It's like, oh, how do you get a band to become more popular? How do you get famous? And I'm like, that's a really tough question, but it has to be organic. And I think being in Brooklyn at that time was crucial. And we had a lot of friends and everybody supporting us, and we're just very fortunate to have that support group around us and help us grow. And I just think that being young, going out and kind of mingling, socializing and just having that freedom, you're able to be more creative, to create new music, and just kind of find yourself.
So when you first started writing songs, was it more just were the songs just more about your experiences, or were they specifically themed, or like what was kind of like the vibe?
Well, we're a jam band. We don't really sing much. We push ourselves to sing more because it's more appealing, and I think that people can gravitate towards bands that sing versus instrumental. Um,
They connect better.
yes.
Yeah.
So if I go down our catalog, I think from the beginning we kind of always had a mix of songs. It was
Mhm.
probably maybe like 80% songs were instrumental, 20% were vocal. I think that's still the case today.
Mhm.
And in terms of being in Brooklyn, I think that ratio stayed the same. And in terms of inspiration, maybe it's like seeing a great band and just having inspiration to write something at home. Um, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, it's so long ago, but we just write music, whether someone brought it to the table or we are just practicing or maybe performing live and we did a jam that, or there's a motif that repeated, then we turn that into something. So there's a lot of different factors that go into the creative process.
Mhm. So of the songs that you've done, what is your favorite bass line on a song?
That's tough. Oh, that's a really tough one. I gotta check Spotify.
Where you really
Uh,
feel like your imprint on that song made that song great. Maybe that's a better way to look at it. Or
yeah, I'm just kind of looking at Cone, our
Yep.
2021 album. We can discuss that later. But I would say maybe Throwing Shade or Triangulation just because of the intricacies of it. But as a jam band, a lot of the good stuff, a lot of the bread and butter comes from these live, compositions that we create on the spot.
Mhm.
The what's in between the songs. Um, and there I could I need to do more homework, but maybe like 12/29, 2019, that's probably my favorite set in the 2.0 era, and there's a lot of really good bass lines there.
Okay.
Um,
So do you miss playing drums?
I never really play drums. That's the thing. So it was this when we did that three piece starting
Yeah.
out at our friend's frat party, shout out Pikes and RPI. We just my friend who was the vice president is just like, I know you're always in bands. Do you want to play and hang out? And I was like, sure. So it was just an excuse to get together. I mean, as a bass player, I played a lot of different instruments. I was supposed to go tuba for school for a tuba minor. I was really into music in high school, so I kind of did a little bit of everything. But I learned drums just from playing with other drummers and kind of emulating their style. And I eventually had a drum kit at my house, so I just taught myself. But I think as a bassist, it's very important to be in line with your rhythm section. And I think playing drums helps. So I still play if I need to at like jam parties or if we're just messing around with friends, but I mostly just stick to bass these days.
Yeah. So siblings, parents, who else is musical in your family?
No one. Maybe have a great grandfather that played tuba in the Swiss Alps. I have a cousin that's a jazz performer in Paris, but not really much music. I don't know where it came from.
So no idea, or like as a child, like when did you start getting in? Like, did you feel like you could play an instrument?
Oh, I mean, I think everyone kind of goes through this where it's like in third or fourth or fifth grade, you're like, what instrument do you want to play? So I started playing trombone, and I think, middle school. Yeah, middle school, sixth or seventh grade, you start hanging out with different kids.
Mhm.
The different elementary schools combine, it becomes a melting pot.
Yeah.
And I had a friend whose brother was into punk music. So then I was like, okay, this is cool. I need to be cool now. So I'm going to start listening to this. And then they were starting a band. So then I play guitar, and it kind of just progressed from there. But I don't know, it's always like playing music and expressing myself through that medium.
Yeah. So let's go back to 2015 then. So you said you were going to shows. Are we staying in Brooklyn? Are we traveling to go to concerts? Are we, following anybody? Like who are we into at that point?
Me personally, it's just a melting pot of everything.
Okay.
I don't gravitate towards being like a super fan of one group or even one genre. I kind of have a very large genre pool. We're all everyone in the band like doesn't really gravitate towards one genre. We kind of like mix and match. Like, I really like Queens of the Stone Age, but I also like Justice. I like electronic music. I like jam bands. Our keyboardist is a huge Disco Biscuits fan. Our drummer is too. But they both like either electronic music or like, 90s metal or alternative. And then our current guitarist, Fred, he's big into like God, I'm gonna butcher these genres, but like, more like niche, like metal, punk, harder, hardcore
Yeah,
stuff.
sure.
Um, so in terms of following bands, I mean, I didn't go on tour to follow any bands. Whoever, living in New York City, everyone kind of comes to that area. So we're very fortunate to have so many different venues of different calibers, whether it's MSG and you could see Electric Light Orchestra and Billy Joel, or from the smallest venues, you see like a small band that'll eventually become up and coming. Um, so kind of just consuming everything that was available at the time.
Mhm. So your favorite venue to play in New York City, and then your favorite venue to go see a show.
Oh, that's tough. Um, that's really tough because they're all great. I mean, I think Brooklyn Bowl
Yeah.
just because of the nostalgia. Um, we played there a bunch, opening up for some big bands like Spafford and Pigeons and Perpetual Groove, and there's another one. Um, but we always spent a lot of time there because we were living so close, or it was really easy to get to by train. Everyone was seeing shows there. And that kind of was like the home base for jam music in New York City or Brooklyn. So I would say Brooklyn Bowl to both answers,
Yeah.
both
Now,
questions.
and they're independently owned too, or no?
Brooklyn Bowl?
Yeah.
That's the Pete Shapiro. That's the Capitol Theater.
Gotcha.
That's all the Broken Bowls. Now it's in Philly, Nashville, Vegas. And he owns the wetlands. Yeah, I mean Pete Shapiro.
Yeah, and he also does the Relics magazine, correct? Is that the
I think
same guy or
so.
no?
I don't want to
Yeah.
say something correct. Just do a quick Google search,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, yeah. I think he is because I know I'm good friends with Andy Frasco and those guys, and I know
Oh,
they're
nice.
good friends with him too. So maybe not. So let's talk
Uh,
about the Capitol Theater, man. You have played it. You go see shows there quite often. You said you even go shows with your dad there.
yes.
What is it about the Capitol Theater that makes it one of the best venues in the country?
It's the vibes. I mean, I would just say go to the venue and check it out yourself. Specifically for the band, it has a home in our heart because we played so starting out as 1.0 as like a more of a college party band, jam adjacent band, to kind of progress up in the ranks, you have to play more legit venues, and Garcia's kind of gave us that incubator or that place for us to evolve.
Learn too, right?
Excuse me?
Yeah, like learn too, right? I mean, like
Yeah,
each other and like,
yeah, just
you're
performing in like a legit venue. We eventually became friends with a lot of people there. Our friends are bartending. And we were playing close to once every 2 months, which is a lot. But we were all kind of based out of Westchester, Brooklyn, and it was really accessible by train. So, every time I go to Garcia's, I just kind of think about being much younger, performing and kind of growing um and in terms of the Capitol Theater, I've seen a lot of music there. I remember when it opened up in 2012, 13, and it was a big deal, and seeing a lot of great bands there. And when we had the opportunity to play, it was really surreal. It was, you can't really believe it. And this was 2018 or 17. We opened up for Humphreys. Um, and I just remember performing, and then after the first segment, just the noise of the crowd, it was like so loud. I was like, wow, this is real. And then the second time we opened up for Lotus, my nerves were a little bit more tame, and I think that's the better show for me personally of us playing at the Cap. That's on YouTube. But really surreal. It's an incredible venue. It has a history. A lot of great acts have played there from the Dead to Eric Clapton, and I don't know if you go to that venue, they're all over the place. All the photos, it's the best. And in terms of going there with my dad, it's 15 minutes for us, and we don't have to go to the city. We don't have to deal with parking, so it's a very convenient place to see music, and we're very fortunate to have it, and also to live so close next to it.
I'm sure pretty good draft list too, or is it only bottles?
Um, no, they have a good draft list. They have one beer that's really powerful I stay away from. I think it's called Flower Power. But
Oh, from Ithaca.
yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they have the Capital Ale, so they partnered with Captain Lawrence Brewing Company, which is based out of Elmsford. It's like the Westchester County.
Awesome brewery. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
we actually played there twice or three times.
Oh,
But
nice.
yeah, it's a great place. So they partner up and they have their own beer, and every time I go, I try to get it.
Yeah, so we visited Captain Lawrence I'm gonna say before the pandemic. So you're not that far? Like where you live, you're not that far?
Yeah, like 20 minutes.
Oh, nice, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back again to like the earlier days. Did you guys do any covers? And if you did, like what was one of your favorite covers that you would play?
Well, when we started out, I think we did like a Will Smith song and like a Herbie Hancock song. So we kind of just did a little bit of everything at the beginning. I was actually looking in my parents' basement because that's where we used to practice, and they took off a lot of flyers, but there's still some there from the early days. And we did a Lotus set, spiritualized face picking playing Lotus in like 2015 at the Knitting Factory in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Um, and we did a full Lotus set then. I think that's the only time we've played Lotus. But yeah, in terms of covers, it's definitely changed throughout the years. We just try to do like more songs that the crowd will know, or like, my mom and dad will know. Um, I don't know, I gotta check Fantasy Tour or Nugs or Spotify. But a lot of our live albums, you can kind of see that there'll be times where we do like a lot of covers. We just played Chicago recently, and that was in conjunction with someone's wedding, so we did like a lot of covers then. This year, early in the year, we played Snow Bacon, an annual event in Vermont at Mount Snow. We're doing one again next year, MLK weekend. But yeah, we did a whole 80s night, so we just did a lot of 80s songs, and that really pushed us. I think as a musician, when you learn someone else's material, it makes you better, especially if it's Rush or, a great lyric song, like we did Bruce Springsteen. So, no, we do a lot of covers.
No, Toto?
No, we should have done that one.
Oh,
But I feel like
Africa.
that was too popular. Like Weezer covered it, and you had the whole meme thing. That would have been great from a marketing standpoint to a different demographic. But
Yeah.
no, maybe next time we do an 80s night.
That's funny. So I know you guys before the pandemic had a pretty significant tour plan. Can you talk
Mhm.
about the logistics of that and then, kind of then how you dealt with the pandemic as the band and personally?
Sure. I think that leading up to that point, we were getting very close to doing like a big tour. We were doing a lot of stuff. We were playing like every single weekend leading up to that. Um, we all work jobs, so the weekends are when we would perform. And in terms of this big tour, we still have to go to there's like South Carolina, we still need to hit up. Um,
Charleston's great.
yeah, Pittsburgh. I mean, I wish I could find that flyer, but we've been to a lot of places from that tour later in the later years.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it was definitely a step back. It's unfortunate, but a lot of lives were affected at that time, and I think it was like a time for just us to like find out who we really are, what our passions are. I think at that time we kind of just took a break from writing music or working on music because we were so separated. Um, And like I started a side project with our sound engineer Alfred Rylance, who's now our guitarist. And I guess we'll talk about that later, but that was kind of like a segue into the next chapter of Space Bacon. It was a band called The Plug. It was our buddy Zach and Jesse. And that was kind of cool to just take a step back and to kind of do music that was different from Space Bacon, but still adjacent, like more hip hoppy. There was a lot of drum and bass, different, improvising with different members. I feel like that makes you um, like better, but also just to perform differently. And at that time, Jack started working on his electronic career, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Jack Willard on Spotify, he's doing pretty well, and his music's awesome. And then Chris worked on he keeps on changing his name, but DJ Checher Cube or DJ Chris. But yeah, he does his stuff. So in terms of the pandemic, I think it was a good time for us to find out musically like where um just to get away from the band and kind of focus on music and then come back to it. Also, Sam, sorry, I forgot to mention, but Sam was playing drums for a few cover bands, and he was playing drums every single day at our studio with our buddy Brian. So his chops definitely got better from the pandemic. But I think it was a good time to take a step back. It was a very rough time for a lot of people, but I try to see the best out of everything and make light of a bad situation. Um, when we came back from the pandemic, we played two shows at an outdoor festival that our friend George threw called Safe and Sounds, and honestly, it's some of the best space bacon from 2.0, and I think that's partly contributed to just taking a break and just, being grounded with yourself and then bringing that back to the table as a unit.
Yeah, I mean, from all of the bands that I've interviewed, like most of them, I would say that were bands during the pandemic, or at least had been established before the pandemic.
Mhm.
Like that's kind of the same. mantra that I got from them was that, yeah, it sucked, but like we became a better band, we became closer, and like the music that came out of that time was some of their best stuff that they'd done up to that point.
Yeah.
So,
And we released an album after that. We had all the time to edit it. I mean, it was 16 tracks. It was a very big album called Cone. Listen to it on Spotify and everywhere. Um, but yeah, that came out of the pandemic too. That gave us time to finalize and to work on it because that's a lengthy process putting out recorded material.
let's talk about that process of why 16 songs, the length of time that it took to do that, kind of give the audience a taste of that.
It's not really my department.
Okay.
So at the time, like Alfred Ryland's he was our sound engineer, now guitarist. So he kind of we so as a jam band, all our sets are recorded. So from the 2.0 generation, we have everything on Bandcamp. It's up like maybe 100 live albums. Fred mixes and masters all of them. For this album, it started off as us going to the studio. I forget the name of the studio, but it's in Long Island. And we were gonna do like a small EP, and then we kind of just brought it back and it was like, no, let's just do an album because we never did an album. So then we recorded some of this. I can't remember. Oh, in Vermont at one of our members' houses in southern Vermont. So we recorded the other half of the album there. And then you have overdubs and everything. So it takes a long time. And I'm not an engineer, but yeah, Fred and our guitarist at the time, Jack and Chris, had a lot of say in the creative process for this.
So how many songs did you bring to that session that were cut down to that 16, or did you bring 16?
Well, these are songs that we've been playing for a while.
Okay, good.
Looking at this, the only song that was like made for the album is maybe Lodge and these interludes. So these songs have been in our rep and Cone. We
Right.
don't even play that song live, and it has 280,000 views. Yeah, it's our most popular song. We never played it live, but that's what happens when you have the first song of your album, become the most popular. But yeah, these are songs we played for ages. And in terms of like who created what, I mean, it's a mixed bag of everything. Chris and Jack brought a lot to the table. I had some say in some creative process. Yeah, it's a mixed bag of everything.
Mhm. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, that's kind of how it should be, right? I mean, especially when you have more than two people in the band.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the dynamics kind of the band with each iteration of either 2.0 and 3.0 and how that changed or if it didn't change at all.
I mean, 1.0 was so long ago. I would just say it's been a while since I've listened to albums of that, but it wasn't polished. And as any young band, nothing's polished from the beginning. It takes time to develop your sound. And that was the whole point of that iteration of the band. 2.0, I've like listened to some stuff from the past, and it's me as a bass player, I'll focus on like certain bass lines or whatever, or how progressions go. Um, I've evolved as a musician. Our sound design has evolved. I think our patience has evolved too, and that's something as a young band is hard to translate, even though it sounds easy. Just being patient with the jam and seeing where it goes. Um, and over time, that kind of has, created the sound that it is today, or what it developed over time. Um, like I said, the 12/29 2019 a Fish After Party, like I consider that like the golden standard for 2.0 Bacon. That's on Spotify and everywhere. That's a great album, but there's a lot of patience there. There's a lot of creative dynamics. There's a lot of motion between minor and major and different modes and different, dark and trancey versus light and happy. Um, and that still translated to 3.0. I mean, I'm not sure if we want to talk about it now, but our sound engineer became our guitarist.
Yeah.
So he was the unofficial fifth member. He probably listened to more Space Bacon than we did since he had to listen to every single album, mix and master it. So when he came to the table, he didn't try to be. I mean, it's you got to talk to him about it. But you want to be yourself as a musician, as a guitarist, but also you don't want to stray too far away from what the sound was originally. And I think Fred does a great balance of it. The only thing is, Jack, as a guitarist, he would get later in our career, we started exploring more heavy stuff like metal, more breakdowns. And then Fred kind of took that, and we'll do that more during performances. Some of our newer compositions, like Snake Charmer, for example, they're a little bit harder at points. So I think that's maybe something that's really noticeable between the 2.0 and the 3.0 is that we tend to get heavier. Um, you just gotta listen to it, compare on your own.
Mhm. Yeah, like you're right. It does it like heavy is such a general term for like that style of music, but like I like sometimes I hear like some prog rock, sometimes I hear like a little bit of like, you know, 80s kind of like hard rock, then because like decades of, like there's different decades of hard rock as well. Like, early
Yeah.
2000s like System of a Down, like that kind of hard rock, so or heavy, whatever you want to call it. So it is kind of interesting how that works out, huh?
Yeah. I mean, Fred can get really heavy. He likes
Death
just you can
metal.
tell by the distortion of his guitar that's like, oh, this is really heavy. So as a sound engineer, he has a really great ear for tone, and he really explores that soundscape and gives us that edge that separates us from other bands in the music scene.
Now, do all of you in the 3.0 version, are all of you can read music or some of you?
Um, I mean, I can if you give me a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I mean, I used to play bass instruments in high school and thought about doing that in college. So like, I mean, I can, but I'm not great. I don't know if Fred can. I'm sure he did. He went to school for music. I don't know if Chris or Sam can, but we've kind of at this time we in terms of music, like in terms of like treble clef, bass clef, that's a little bit harder if you don't practice it or if you're not classically trained. And the way we look at music, we have chords, we have our own system that is legible for everyone.
Yeah, that's well, yeah, whatever it works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, so talk about like, I'm sure a lot of our audience wants to know as a jam band, like how much is improvised and how much is kind of planned within the live set. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta look at our set lists. After every performance, we post them live, and also they're streaming on Nugs, Spotify, Bandcamp. So if you look at the set list, there's always like a start and an end. I mean, it's we have to get from A to B to C. Um, and let me just find an example. So, um, 1 second, I think there was. I can't find a set list.
That
1 second.
November, the Chicago November set list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So for example, yes, November 9th, Bourbon on the Vision, Chicago. That was a great show. It sold out. We haven't been in Chicago in ages, so it was great coming back and just rocking the place with our homie S. Chad. So looking at set one, so we have a vocal song named Parachute, so that's in C or C, I don't know. And then so that's more of like a vocal, happy, upbeat, a little bit of funky song. And then we have to take that and move the progression to I don't know what I remember is, but that's a Dead Mouse cover. So we have to take that not only tonally from let's just say C to D or G to D, whatever, we have to change the tempo too. So to get there, we kind of talk about that beforehand. Like, okay, well, we have to do this. So our drummer will slowly do this, or at some point where we give a cue, we'll change key and then we'll do it. So we kind of like briefly talk about how we'll do the transitions for big dynamic changes like that when it's a different tempo. But for sliding from one song that's the same tempo to the next, we kind of just innately know that. So we'll discuss that previously, but in terms of like the composition or what kind of like melodies or progressions come between that, that's all improv.
Gotcha.
So then, looking at the segment here, we'll do I Remember. That's like three chords just repeating. with some small nuances to pull the drums or the rhythm section back and then bring it forward with more leads. And then once that's done, we have to go do another song that's in a different key, but in a similar drum tempo.
Okay.
So we'll kind of break it down. We'll stay in the root note, and then we'll probably create a jam there. I'll create a progression with some type of turnaround. At this point, it's just kind of, innate nature for me to do these things and everyone else to follow. We just after doing this for 11, 12 years, you have a innate system of how to improv. Um, and then once we do that, we'll either change the key and reset, or we'll slide it over to the ending. But I just, anyone who hasn't listened to us, just check out some of our music that's streaming or live compositions or even on YouTube, because on YouTube you can kind of see better as to like how we're looking at each other, and kind of giving innate cues, just by like giving like a look or a nod as like, hey, we're gonna do this. Um, if being a jam band takes time to kind of develop this art of improving and doing it pretty well. Um, yeah, and I would just listen to our music to kind of understand us more on that
I think
front.
I think too, like, and maybe you would disagree with this statement, but I do feel like with regards to like the genre itself, like jam music, I really
Hmm.
feel like the bands that are jam bands really kind of have this like I don't know, like dedication or like homage almost to the genre that they want to like do the best they can. Is that fair to say, or do you not agree with that?
I can't speak on behalf of other bands.
Well, fair enough. Yeah.
Um, I just think personally, the mantra of Space Bacon, or at least for me as a musician, is try to be yourself. Of course, you can kind of look at our music and our improvisations and kind of say like, oh, this sounds like this sounds like that, etc. I mean, it's very hard to be purely unique. Um, and in terms of our jams, like I just saw Dope Pod recently, and those guys are very talented. They've been to Berkeley, some of the best musicians in the scene. And the way they do it is so, seamless and precise, and it's so clean. I mean, they tour a lot. You don't have to discredit them, but yeah, they tour a lot, and they're performing every night for months and weeks straight. Here for us, we'll do like two shows in a weekend, and then we'll take a month off, or maybe we'll have a heavy month and we'll perform 4 weekends in a row. We just do whatever we do. We've been jamming for years, and we talk internally about how we make it better. So in terms of, an homage to the past people, whether it's the Grateful Dead or Fish or Disco Biscuits or whatever,
Right.
of course, like we lean on some inspiration because they are the foundation for the whole entire genre, and we are not reworking that. I think in regards to like, I think it's just more for a me thing when it's like creating jams that are better. Like, because I could just create something, in musician speak, like root, fourth, fifth, fourth, fifth. That's very basic. That's anyone could do that. The thing is taking that and then adding turnarounds or changing it from major to minor, or maybe creating like a larger progression out of it. I think as a musician, you always want to push yourself and, list like I kind of think internally about jam bands as football, or soccer or whatever. It's a team effort, and not everyone's going to be the MVP or the quarterback every night, but someone has to be the quarterback, someone has to make calls. And I think as the bass player, that's unconsciously what happens. Of course, with the drums, it's more obvious. But I try to push myself in terms of my musical prowess to become better and to do different compositions and not do certain jams or progressions like we did in the past,
Hmm.
because if we're doing the same progression every night in a jam,
Hmm.
it's not really improv.
Yeah.
But of course, we do tease stuff a lot, or if we're working on new music, we'll like sneakily try like, oh, like let's do this progression we're working on, see what happens. But yeah, we just try our best to make things original, improv, and different every night, and we just want our fans to have a unique experience every time we perform.
Yeah. I mean, it's well said. So you kind of touched on set list. Let's talk about the set list. How much thought is put into it? As a jam band, obviously set lists are important because, like you said, you don't want to play, the same song, more than twice in the same city. So
Of course.
how much thought is put into that?
It's a group effort, and I think at different times and different stages of the band, whoever has free time or whoever has an idea, we have like a group, and then we'll post something, be like, I have an idea for like a set, or I have an idea for a segment that I want to do. Sometimes we'll have fans write set lists or request stuff, so we'll incorporate that. But we try to find a balance. Space Bacon isn't just a dance electronic band. We have songs with vocals that are more, let's just say, like funk or rock oriented.
Mhm.
We have other instrumental songs that are more, like regular, I don't know, like down tempo or non-dance. So we just want to make sure that we can give fans a little bit of everything every when we perform. So writing a set list, we have to make sure that the songs from one to the other, the A to B to C, make sense musically. So it's not too much of a kerfuffle, or if it's just like musically, like if you're going a semitone up from a C to a C sharp, like sure you could do some like metal stuff, but it's not really good to do that from a music perspective. It should be a whole step or a fourth or a fifth. So there is a lot of conversation that happens. It's the democratic process, and we just try to do a different set every night. I don't know if any set has been repeated at all because that's always on our mind. We always want to play a different set. We're always writing new music. We're always throwing different covers in. So I would say that every single Space Baking set has been different since the inception of it.
Yeah.
And that's something we will continue for the future. And that's kind of who we are as a band, is to always give fans something unique and different every night.
Yeah. So I guess then, generally speaking, the so next year you've got Cave Jam lined up so far.
Yep.
That's in April, correct? Or May week,
That's
Memorial Day
Memorial Day
weekend?
weekend.
Memorial Day weekend, yeah. And you
That's
guys
gonna be
did that
fun.
this past year. Talk about that experience.
That's probably one of our better shows ever. If you look on YouTube, you can watch the whole performance. That was magical. I mean, the Caverns is,
Yeah.
I mean, talk about playing the Capitol Theater. That's a great place. The Caverns is the same caliber. I mean, but it's so unique because you're inside a cave. The temperature drops to a clean, I'm gonna butcher this, but maybe like 55, 50 degrees every time you walk in. So you're at a hot music festival, come in, it's cool. The vibes are nice. We played a really stellar show there, and can't wait to be back there next year.
Yeah.
The
Great
lineup's
lineup.
incredible. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
String Cheese again, Frasco. Haley Jane's on there. I don't know the rest of the lineup, but yeah, they do a really good job at the Caverns, and I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, yeah. So do you personally prefer playing a, say, like 300 cap venue or like a festival appearance?
That's a tough question. Um, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I prefer playing concerts indoors,
Mhm.
given like weather's a factor with music festivals. So there's always like a fear like, oh, it's gonna rain or whatever. We've been very fortunate that we haven't had any festival sets canceled. So when you're playing a festival, there's elements involved that are out of your control. Um, I mean, in terms of like setting up. I mean, festivals are much shorter. You're there an hour before and you have a certain span and that's it. And then you can see so much music afterwards. I guess I would say the festivals because they're more exciting in terms of like the environment and the other acts of what's going on.
Mhm.
But I love playing indoor music venues just as much.
Yeah. I had one band member tell me that he liked the indoor venue because he knew that probably 90% of those fans were actually their fans compared to a festival appearance. it might be like 50-50. So I was like, oh, that's a good
Yeah,
point. I never thought about
but
that.
you want people, that's the exposure factor. So when you
Correct.
play a festival, you're giving people an opportunity to see your band, and that helps you grow. When you're playing a show in your hometown of Brooklyn, like sure, your family and friends come, but I don't really know how many more people will that are outside the group will come to an event. So festivals are really beneficial in that aspect of reaching different markets and making new fans in the process.
Yeah. So speaking about reaching fans, social media, obviously, that is something that as bands, as podcasters, we just kind of have to deal with. As a band, how do you guys treat social media?
Essential, pivotal to everything we do. I mean, I work in tech. Our keyboardist works in advertising. And just going on all our social medias, we make a really strong effort to have a great brand, to have strong assets, strong media. We kind of know like what the trends are, like if Facebook, if Meta or TikTok or whatever. We're on every single platform you can think of. Twitter, we're recently on Blue Sky, TikTok, but that might be phasing out soon, and Facebook and Instagram. And we try to build up our brand and who we are on each platform because we know different fans will gravitate towards different social medians.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and it's just important to have, so for example, when we play a show, we immediately put our set list out into our private Facebook group called Space Baconator, where our fans can chat. Um, and then, so we have an internal group where we share set list immediately, news and all that. But on our public pages, like the day after, we'll post photos with the set list. We want fans to be in the know of what we played. We our keyboardist will record every single set. So every set we have is recorded audibly, and then Fred mixes and masters it. But on the visual side, Chris records everything on GoPros and splices it together. So every single concert we've performed is both audio visually on YouTube with sound and also on Nugs and other streaming platforms. Content is king. That has been the mantra of websites and every type of brand company out there since, I don't know, 2010. So we take that very seriously. We try to record everything. We want to give our fans every experience possible and have it to a high quality. And yeah, I mean, it's just when you have a good social page, when you're constantly there, it just only makes your band more well known, and that means more fans come to the concerts, and that's what we want. We want people to be impressed with who we are as a band, both musically and also from a marketing advertising side.
Yeah. So what would you say, which platform do you feel like you guys have had the most success?
Define success. I mean, you could look at metrics. You could
Short
look at
metrics. Yeah, followers. I mean, yeah, like,
yeah. I don't have them in front of me. I mean, I do keep stats on it. So every Monday I have the numbers in so I can kind of see where we're growing and I can see like, oh, we played this festival, we have this many new fans. All are important, all social media realms are different. I say we don't do as well on Threads because that's not a great social media platform. We don't do as well as on Twitter, but that's because we never really paid attention to Twitter until like maybe a few years ago. So I think our strong suits are Instagram and Facebook. And we're recently getting to the TikTok space because you kind of need to be everywhere these days, especially when TikTok is for a younger demographic. Um, I mean, we do well everywhere. We try to do well on every platform because we understand that different social media, um, and not engines, websites,
sure.
apps
Yep.
will have different demographics.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it is. It is like imperative to try and grow community. Like, and that's social media is the way to do it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse because it is easier, but then also I don't know, something like no one goes out that much anymore. You have the social media at home. You don't have to socialize. I think it's important to go out and go to concerts and see friends. And too much we're just talking on a screen.
Yeah, but I will say though, and I think it's gotten worse since the pandemic, but like especially club shows, not as much amphitheater shows or big shows, but like the conversations during shows, like it's really gotten out of hand. Like it used to be the phones, like that was the biggest thing, but like I think that's kind of like, gone by the wayside. I mean, still people, record stuff on phones.
Depends on the concert. Yeah.
Yeah, like but conversations, man, it's like guys, like go somewhere else if you want to do this. Like we're here to listen to
Yeah.
music.
I mean, if you go on Reddit and all that, people like, try to, you know,
Justify.
like, no, just to like make fun of it and try to shame people when they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people talk at concerts, just talk less. I don't know.
Words to live by, right? So, what else can we share then? Any new music that we have for next year or first quarter next year, or any shows or anything that we can talk with our audience about
Um, when is this podcast coming out?
next week?
On the 18th?
Probably on, yeah, it could be, well,
Okay.
probably more like the 16th or 17th.
Okay, I guess I'll just say this now, but we're announcing three shows next week.
Okay.
So we're doing Mount Snow. We're playing a video game set on March 8th. It's a Saturday. That's in Lower Vermont.
Okay.
We are playing at
A
we're
video game set?
yeah. So we throughout the history of space baking, we've played a lot of video game songs. There's one set in particular from Space Invasion. I forget what year, but we actually did a full video game set many years ago. So we're going to try to bring that back to the ski resort of Mount Snow, which we play very often. Um,
So, which one of your gamers then?
I mean, we all do. I probably play the most, but I don't play that many video games. Sure, we play video games, but we have to focus on music and other stuff. So we try to limit it because what's better, playing 4 hours of Diablo 4 or playing music with your friends and try and make new songs for people to hear. So you have to balance that out.
Okay.
But we all love video games,
Yeah. Yeah, it's your generation.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
What else we got?
We're performing at in Scranton Wilkes-Barre at the River Street Jazz Cafe.
Nice.
I think it's March 28th. It's a Friday. And then we're making our debut in Rochester, New York on March 29th at Flower City Station. And we have a lot more stuff lined up for next year. December is when bands start really figuring out stuff for festival season and Q2. So we have a lot of stuff that's, every year we around this time we ask our fans on social media like, oh, where do you want to see Space Bake? And
Mhm.
it really helps us understand where we should go. And we try our best to make everyone happy, but we have to, work-life balance. And we're really trying to push ourselves next year to new markets, and pairing up with some really great bands in the process. So stay tuned, and we'll have more tour dates announced in the coming weeks.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. So I was going to ask then, so you aren't doing anything for New Year's personally or for the band?
So we have a fish after party. So it's an annual tradition. A lot of people come to New York City to see Fish around New Year's.
Yep. Four
Um,
nights this year, right?
excuse me?
I think it's 4 nights this year, right?
I believe so. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But we're playing on Sunday, the 29th at Hill Country Barbecue, which is the closest venue to MSG. And we just love seeing fans from, Chicago or way out there that come out for Fish and they get to see us in the process. So that's always a blast, just connecting with people and giving us the opportunity to see us when, such a large crowd are coming to see a great band like Fish perform.
Now, how many times have you seen Fish?
Once, actually.
Ah, okay.
And
I would
that
have
was
guessed
in,
more.
yeah, no, they're great. Yeah, I wish I got to see them sooner. I mean, it was a great time seeing them. I've been on other podcasts called All That Jam with Kevin Hogan. I forget his podcast name.
Yeah.
Just by
His screen name, right?
yeah. But anyway, yeah. So he invited me on the podcast, his Fish podcast. Like, how many times have you seen Fish? I'm like, I haven't yet. It's like, well, you're on a Fish podcast. Like, I know. I just I'm usually performing after Fish or adjacent to Fish, but it was really great to see them. I have a lot of friends that are Fish fans. It's funny that I've probably jammed to more Fish with my friend group who love Fish more than I've seen them, but I think that that changed last summer when I saw that MSG. It was a great show. I mean, the vibe, the energy, it's very unique, and it was one of the most unique concert experience I've seen. And I definitely should see them. Maybe I'll see them on New Year's run this year. I think my friends are talking about going. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I was late to the party with them as well. I didn't get into them until like 2017, 2018.
mhm.
But now I wouldn't say I'm hooked, but I mean I've seen them now, I think 5 or 6 times in that time frame. So yeah. I was looking at for the year. I went to 27 concerts this year, not including South by and not including the Ramble Festival, which that should
Mhm.
be on your guys' radar. That's a Are
I've
you
heard about
familiar
it.
with Ramble?
That's in Maryland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know about it. We'll have our agent contact them.
Yeah, that's Columbus Day weekend next year. But we
Nice.
got to we got to cover it this year for the podcast, and it's awesome. Like it's a great Mo headlined, Devil Makes Three, Trombone Shorty, Frasco played, La
Nice.
Special played, which those guys are fantastic.
We've known the special for ages.
Oh my gosh, like so
We
good.
Yeah, like back in like the 1.0 days, that we've hung out with them since then. Our drummer is actually in a band called Escaper with them. I just want to give I guess a shout out, or not shout out, but just a keep your eye out. But the bass player got their
Yeah,
van broken into.
right.
So, if you're in the Syracuse area and you see any very expensive basses in some pawn shops or on Craigslist, reach out to the special. It's really tragic because those basses are custom made, and Luke's very akin to them. He loves them, so it's a shitty feeling. It's awful when you see that on social media. It's just like fuck, like.
It's
But
unfortunately a reality. Yeah, it really is. It's yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, 'cause it's hard enough these days to be a musician. Now you have to worry about people stealing your shit. Like, I mean, geez.
I mean, especially Syracuse. It's not you know, it's a little sketchy there.
Yeah. So there's Orangeman.
You know.
Well, Kevin, I appreciate you taking the time. You're over your lunch break to do this with me.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
much love to you and the rest of the band, and I can't wait to see you guys live. That is definitely on my radar. I wish I could do the 29th uh, to see that Hill Country show because I've been to that Hill Country barbecue. That's a cool spot.
Mhm. Well, we'll be in Baltimore on Saturday. I'm not sure if you're available.
I'm going to see what I can do. Is that sold? Is it sold out?
8 by 10. No, it's not sold out.
Okay. All right. And you guys are headlining.
Yes, we're headlining with
Uncle
a
Kunkel.
side project with Uncle Kunkel
Yeah.
and ELM.
Yeah. Yeah. Those guys are cool. Yeah, they're cool guys. So that should be a blast. So I'll let you know after this if we can do that. But yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all. Thank you, all of you. Again, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us and that helps the bands like Space Bacon. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear RAR. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Dogg. You've been great. This is the Music Lab podcast.